CBSE Board, Class 9, History, Chapter 2, Part 11, Audio by Rini Matthew. The ship Aurora had shelled the beautiful Winter Palace. We saw that in the previous audio. Was there any change after the month of October? If there was any, what were the changes? Who brought it about? The Bolsheviks totally disagreed to private property. That is the first point given on the slide here. And many industries and banks were nationalized, which means that they came under the control of the government, which meant that ownership and management was taken over by the government. They were scrutinized very deeply. Land was considered to be a social property. It was no longer a private property, and peasants were allowed to seize the land. What do you mean by seize? Just take it away. Hold it away. Especially from the nobles. The nobles must have been really angry for this reason. And in very big cities, we can see that people used to construct very large houses, which was not according to the requirement of the family members. Sometimes it will be so huge that 2 or 3 families can stay together. So such places, such houses were taken into confiscation by the Bolsheviks, and they forced them to divide it. Okay, they got hold of such large houses and enforced partition. After that, they also banned the use of titles to aristocratic people. People had titles because of their social rank. That was completely banned. No longer people had titles. Can you see the cap on the screen? You must have seen it in the films or in historic documentary films. Now, for the first time, army members and officials were given uniforms. Uniforms were designed, and that was designed following a clothing competition because many people came up with a lot of recommendations and suggestions. And this Soviet hat that you can see here on the screen became very famous. It is known as Budyonovka. That was chosen to be the national hat of the Soviet people. And then the Bolshevik party renamed their party as the Russian Communist Party. We already saw that their ideologies matched communism. Communism was started by Karl Marx, and it really matched. That's why they were known as Russian Communist Party. And in November 1917, the Bolsheviks tried to get into the government, into the parliament. They wanted to represent, but they lost in the elections. They lost in the elections to the Constituent Assembly. That was the group of body which governed. Don't forget that, the Constituent Assembly. But what happened? They failed to gain majority support. That was in November 1917. In January 1918, the assembly rejected Bolshevik measures. Maybe the people just put forward ideologies and disciplines, but the assembly completely rejected them because they did not get a majority and nobody supported them. And as a result of that, Lenin had to dismiss this assembly. He was a leader, so he dismissed. And he always felt that the All-Russian Congress of Soviets, this is one body which formed the government, was more democratic. And he felt that there was no need for an election right now, forming a different body under the Bolsheviks. That too in uncertain conditions, because people were not completely supporting the Bolshevik measures. So because of that, he felt that without the majority support, without all the people of Russia supporting him, it is going to be futile. It is going to be unnecessary to have another body. And he felt that the All-Russian Congress of Soviets, that is a combination. Apart from the Constituent Assembly, there's a big combination of body that had more democracy. And he did not want to continue with any more elections or formations. In March 1918, there were a lot of opposition between the political allies. But in spite of that, the Bolsheviks made peace with Germany at Brest-Litovsk. Okay, so they went forward. They took a step to make peace with Germany because they had a lot of enmity with Germany and Prussia, Austria. Do you remember? After that, in the years that followed, the Bolsheviks became the only party to participate in the elections. Nobody else wanted to participate in elections, especially to the All-Russian Congress of Soviets. This is the one body which governs the country, and that is the parliament of the country. Do not confuse between that. The Constituent Assembly is the governing, ruling body, but parliament of the country is the All-Russian Congress of Soviets. Now, what happened as a result of all this when they elected? Now, this picture shows the group of Bolsheviks. Everybody is there in that picture, all the major leaders. The first point, Russia became a one-party state. Which party? Bolsheviks. Trade unions were kept under party control because labor camps, laborers, workers, all of them started uprising. So that was kept in party control. The secret police called the Cheka. Okay. And it is a combination of OGPU and NKVD. They severely punished those who criticized the Bolsheviks. So when they got the control, you can see that slightly conditions changed. They started acting very extreme. They took extreme measures. They started acting like dictators. Okay, where trade unions, okay, that is a good step where you keep the trade unions under party control. But punishing everybody who criticized the Bolsheviks? So many young writers and artists rallied to the party because of this, because they didn't have any freedom. They were not given any freedom. In France, they were given the freedom to press. Okay, and they stood for socialism and for change, not for dictatorship. Everything started from socialism. Do you remember? Socialism was an open-ended ideology. But now Bolsheviks had different ideology and everybody just rallied, especially writers and artists. After October 1917, it led to experiments in arts and architecture. You can remember, you can always see that Russia had a great grip on art and architecture. And many became disillusioned. They were confused because of the censorship the party encouraged. Nobody was allowed to write. Nobody was allowed to express thoughts. Nobody was allowed to paint freely, because paintings also will express your feelings and your ideas. That was not encouraged. And they always had strict censorship. Very important point. The Civil War. When the Bolsheviks ordered land redistribution, that is, they told that none of the people should have private property, the Russian army began to break up. Why? The soldiers, especially peasants, I told you that peasants also started becoming soldiers. They wanted to go home because they wanted this redistribution. Okay, they heard that the government is asking everybody to seize the land from the nobles. What an opportunity! So, initially they joined the army so that they will get a living. They will earn a living, not for passion. Not everybody joined for passion. So what they did, they wanted to go back home, confiscate all these land, and what happened as a result of that? They deserted. They just left the army and came out, which is not right. Yeah? Okay. Now there were people who were not part of the Bolsheviks, and they were known as Bolshevik socialists. Socialism is an ideology which was celebrated and embraced by the Bolsheviks. But people who did not really support socialism were out of this particular country. But there were people who were not Bolsheviks, but they were socialist, and they were known as Bolshevik socialist. Liberals and supporters. Do you remember this particular party which was comprising of liberals, supporters, peasants, socialists, all these people? They condemned the Bolshevik uprising because they were so strict. They were really extreme. Now, their leaders, whose leaders? The non-Bolshevik socialism, that particular group's leader, they started moving to South Russia. And they organized troops, that too very secretly, to fight the Bolsheviks. They were the Reds. So during 1918 and 1919, the Greens, these people were represented by the green color, that is the socialist revolutionaries. They were known as the socialist revolutionaries. It is not that they were against socialism. They supported socialism, but not the Bolshevik extremity. Did you understand? Okay. Bolsheviks were red in color and these people were green in color. And then the whites. Whites were supporting the Tsar. Tsar means the king. They controlled most of the Russian Empire. All the three together. Okay. So Bolsheviks were controlling the nation legally, but these two people were against them. They joined together. It's not that Tsar, the people who supported the Tsar, really liked socialism. No. They both joined together to fight the enemy, the common enemy, that is the Bolshevik. You can see this in your daily life also. You may be having a different ideology, a different discipline. Yes, your friend may be having a different discipline, but you both will join together to fight the common enemy. Something like that. Okay. So, they were supported by the French, American, British and Japanese troops because all of them were waiting to pounce on the Russians, especially the Bolsheviks. Bolsheviks were very successful in their upcoming. That is why all of them wanted to pounce. So who all backed them? Who all supported them? French, American, British, Japanese. All the forces were worried at the growth of socialism in Russia. Russia was a very capable country, but they were worried. They didn't want any country to overrule the world. And as these troops in South Russia and the Bolsheviks fought the civil war, they were looting, banditry and famine became common. It was a hell for all the people around the country. It was not at all pleasant. Looting, banditry, civil war, all these things took place between 1918 to 1919. And the supporters of the private property were still there, especially the whites. Who were the whites? Who supported the Tsar. They started taking harsh steps, especially joining their hands with the peasants who had seized land. They wanted land. They supported the other people to fight the Bolsheviks. Now they have got what they wanted. And what did they do? They took harsh steps because they wanted their land back and they supported private property. And these kind of actions led to the laws of popular support for the non-Bolsheviks, because when you take harsh steps, people will not support you. And everybody was fighting for a cause. They were not fighting to do away with socialism. They wanted socialism, but in the right way. And Bolsheviks were using the wrong way of extremity. It's not that their measures were wrong. When you take extreme measures, it upsets the population. So when these kind of harsh steps were taken by the whites, remember that the whites had joined hands with the green. That is the socialist revolutionaries. But when they took harsh steps, they started attacking the peasants. And the non-Bolsheviks, will they keep quiet? They were not happy with that. And by January 1920, the Bolsheviks controlled most of the Russian Empire. And they succeeded because of the non-Russian nationalities, people who were not Russians, and the Muslim Jadidis. From the beginning itself, the Muslim Russians were very supportive of the Bolsheviks and also the non-Russian people. Cooperation did not work, where Russian colonists themselves turned Bolshevik. Some Russian colonists, just to show off, just to show that we are supporting the Bolshevik, they turned Bolshevik. And there what happened? They did not understand the ideology of Bolshevism. So, cooperation did not work. See, suddenly on a day when you decide to follow some ideology without really understanding what it really is, what will happen? You will mess up the whole thing. That is what happened to the Russian colonists. Now, an example is given here in Khiva. Can you see this map here? It is in Uzbekistan. Khiva, Uzbekistan. Khiva is there. Khiva is in the Central Asia. Bolshevik colonists brutally massacred local nationalists because they don't know what they were doing. They didn't know what was Bolshevik ideology. In the name of defending socialism, what did they say? We want to defend socialism, so we will brutally massacre. So showing that they were defending socialism, they took the wrong step and started harassing the nationalists, the locals. And in this particular situation, many people got confused. They were disillusioned about what the Bolshevik really wanted and what it really represented, because it was not taking a right turn. So that is an example which you can give in your answers. Okay.